My earliest memories are of my mother reading the scriptures to me by the light of an oil lamp. She loved the prophets. One night she looked at me and said something I never forgot. "Simon, the time is getting close." She read the promise from Genesis that a ruler would come from Judah. She read the timeline written by the prophet Daniel. Then she smiled and said, "Simon, by the time you are a man, the Messiah may already be here. Perhaps 30 years, perhaps less." Years passed. My parents died before they ever saw that day, but their words stayed with me. The prophet said the time was near, and I wondered if I might live to see it. So I traveled to Jerusalem for the holy day. The city was overflowing with pilgrims, but that year something felt different. People everywhere were whispering about a teacher from Nazareth. Some said he healed the blind, others said he raised the dead, and some whispered one word, Messiah. One morning I heard shouting in the streets. A crowd surrounded a man condemned by Rome. He had been beaten terribly, yet people were still arguing about who he was. I was only passing by, but the soldiers grabbed me. They forced me to carry the cross behind him. For a moment, I walked only a few steps behind the man called Jesus. Jesus of Nazareth. I stayed. I watched them nail him to the cross, and even then he prayed for them. "Father, forgive them." I had never heard anything like it. Then the sky grew dark. The ground shook beneath our feet, and suddenly I remembered the words my mother once read to me. The suffering servant written by the prophet Isaiah. That was when I understood. The prophets were not speaking about some distant time. They were speaking about that day. I remembered my mother's words. "Simon, the time is getting close." She was right. I had carried the cross of the Messiah. Years passed. I told my children about that day, about the man who forgave his enemies. My son listened to the story many times. His name was Rufus. One evening, a traveler came to our home. His name was Paul the Apostle. My wife welcomed him warmly. She cared for him as if he were one of her own sons. Years later, Paul wrote to believers in Rome. In that letter, he greeted my son Rufus. He called him a brother in the Lord. And he said Rufus's mother had been like a mother to him as well. My mother once told me the Messiah would come in our lifetime. She never lived to see that day, but I did. And the story she once read to me became the story I passed on to my son. The day I took up the cross for the Messiah.
Jesus spoke of us taking up the cross. But this wasn't about me. It was about all of us.